Hello and welcome to episode 275 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at DynastyDadFF. We are now entering week 12, right? I almost said week 11 again because it was so wild. I want to just keep reliving it, but we're entering week 12. One thing that means, and I got my Scott Fishbowl shirt on today. Scott Fishbowl playoffs start off in week 12. Snoog, I'm the number one seed, baby. I love it. This year, my team is looking to absolutely dominate in the playoffs. What we're trying to do today is bring you some must-add dynasty buys. Last week, we brought you those all-in contender buys. We brought you those guys where it was like, go buy the guys we've been saying all year, Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey. Now's the time to pay. You know, Snoog and I have been saying, hold on to those firsts as long as possible. Hold on to those picks. Hold on to those players. Now's the time. It's time to start cashing in because we're going to start playing for money. And when we start playing for money, Snoog gets excited. How you doing today, Snoog?
Doing good, Dad. I mean, Scott Fishbowl, I feel like you're always in first place, so congratulations. Good luck, and I hope you win it. For the Smash brand,
you ain't first or last.
Yeah, if you ain't first or last, but no, I'm excited. I mean, I put together my fantasy football buys list. Dad, you did that at the beginning of the month. You always do it. It's cool to see a lot of our players aligning, and honestly, it just comes down to for who to buy in Dynasty. You could always look at it through a different lens. Veterans, injured guys that are underperforming. But some of these guys I put on my bias list, I think will gain value when 2025 start of season rolls around or going into 2025's like right where we're at right now. Yeah. So there's some good long-term holds like Rashee Rice on here we'll talk about. But yeah, the quarterback position especially, there's about 3 good young quarterbacks that I think are amazing buys right now that with coaching changes will skyrocket in value. So let's jump into it. Hey, thanks for joining us, Pete.
We're getting a ton of guys on YouTube, kind of guys on Twitter jumping in on the live stream. Today, we're going to do a lot more show-oriented. We might get to some trades. I love when you guys drop them in there. Pete Nova says, yo, what's up, fellas? Make sure you guys check him out. Another guy that's super awesome in this community. Really been hammering home defense and special teams to try to help you guys, win your waiver wires. He's doing great things over there with FF Faceoff, so make sure you check him out. So, Snoog, we did a show several months ago about dynasty locks to increase in value. And a lot of these guys are in there. And, I think we talk about dynasty being so cyclical and Smash Accept, especially in our Patreon Discord. We've assessed who some of these guys that are going to break out, some of these guys that have put ourselves into position. We have 16 Smash Accept leagues. We have 11 different guys, 11 guys that are over 2,000 points. I'm in 5 of them. You are as well. And it's like, as far as guys over 2,000, because we've predicted who some of these guys are. One of these guys that we predicted as those locks, 9 touchdown passes in just 182 attempts. Drake May has been phenomenal. Everyone says, Jaden Daniels, he has 10 passing touchdowns in almost 300 attempts. Drake May has been putting on a show. He's been someone that, without any weapons at all, has been putting up, rock solid QB2 numbers. He's serviceable for fantasy. He's great for dynasty. And man, add Tet McMillan to the equation, add them, maybe T. Higgins in the offseason, add him some weapons. And this kid who you and I both compared to Justin Herbert on the low end and Josh Allen on the high end has that range of outcomes. I mean, he is inside both of our top 12 quarterbacks for dynasty. And Snoog, I think by the end of the year, we could see him in that top 8 to 10 range.
Yeah, he is, man. He is absolutely crazy because if you look at the circumstance he was put in, which has been killing young quarterbacks in the past, Bryce Young, Trevor Lawrence, all these guys, no one would survive in this Patriots offense. And Drake May is literally thriving. So I think it's really exciting to see a guy like this, a guy I was super high on, you were super high on coming out. I mean, we both had him QB2 until he was drafted to the Patriots, and then you were kind of like, all right, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I absolutely
with the Vikings, we would have got crazy.
If he was a Viking, I think he would have been a QB1 for me.
What's wild?
He's literally Josh Allen. Like he's not as good as Josh Allen, but he plays the game like him, which is just gonna result in a ton of fantasy points. Yeah, he's gonna make mistakes, but he's gonna make so many big play and big time throws and big time runs and score touchdowns where it's just gonna be like, dude, he gets 50, 60 rushing yards in like the first 2 quarters, and then it's 6 points already. He throws a touchdown. There's 12 plus all the yards. He's like a lock for 20 points a game. So I think, T. Higgins comes in on a big contract, or they draft Tet McMillan, or they even grab like Isaiah Bonds and one of these guys in that early second round range. it's wraps. Like, I think he's a lock to gain even more value. If he sniffs the top 5 and passes like a Joe Burrow, CJ Stroud, a Jordan Love, some of those guys, and he's trailing behind like the Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, Lamar, in 2 years, I wouldn't be shocked.
The crazy thing, and I saw this from Bellino Z on Twitter, is he put, EPA per drop back mixed in with pass block grade. He's in the 100th percentile as a rookie, as a first round rookie.
Yeah, it was like him, Burrow, and Stroud, right? Him, Burrow, Stroud, Herbert,
and Lamar,
Daniels.
And he's above all of them. What's interesting is out of them, he has the worst offensive line in 18 years among all rookies to lead in EPA. So, we make excuses for Caleb. We make excuses for Jaden right now. We make excuses for rookie quarterbacks. But, there's no excuse for Drake May. He is going out there with garbage wide receivers, one of the worst offensive lines in the league, and putting up points, which says to me, this is a lot like Josh Allen's rookie year where he had squat around him, right? Then they started building around. They started doing things. And, I think we're looking at maybe a Josh Allen light where if you're rebuilding right now, I think you can go out there and, try to get May in a first for Mahomes at this point. This would have been
2 firsts.
Well, this is what I was
in some leagues. You could do like Josh Allen for May and 2 firsts, or Jalen Hurts for May and 2 firsts.
And no pun intended, but in May when most rookie drafts were happening, I got him at 108 in some places,
I did
107. Too. I was, making moves. I think you could have gotten Mahomes in 3 firsts. You're still at a spot where you can get Mahomes in 2 firsts. You can get Kyler Murray in a first. You can get, there's a lot of players in that range. I'm not trading Joe Burrow right now if I'm a contender, but I feel like a lot of guys in that range that have some uncertainty, I feel like you could still insulate and get Drake May in a first. And next year, you're going to make out big time. I have him right now. He is my QB 10, but I would trade Stroud for May in a first. I would do that at this point because we're not seeing it from Stroud. I would do Daniels in a first. I would do May in a first for Daniels. I wouldn't do it for Jalen, Lamar, Josh, or Burrow. I might not do it for Love, but everybody else, give me a first. I think it has to be a mid for Love, Mahomes. I think I would even do a late with Stroud or a late with Kyler. And that's kind of where I'm at because I'm so bullish on where we're at now, and it's taken me a little bit longer to get there. I'm bullish on him. I'm bullish on Bo Nix. I know you don't want to talk about Bo Nix, but he's been QB9. He's been
great, dude.
He's been even better. And the same situation, Snoog, is the weapons are trash. The offensive line's a little bit better, but it's coaching. Both of these guys have solid coaching right now that I think we're going to be moving into an area where both of these quarterbacks are top 12. I have Bo Nix right now at 14. I'm going to probably move him up to 13 above Caleb, which is just crazy because Caleb actually looked pretty good his first week. 70 rushing yards, getting himself into that area without Shane Waldron. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's a great buy low. But what I want to talk about, and we've talked enough about Nix, we've talked enough about Caleb, you're still buying CJ Stroud. So Nico comes back, and I think we were all expecting 250 and multiple touchdowns. It was the Joe Mixon show, 3 touchdowns again. But sell me on Stroud right now. If I'm contending, I'd rather have Purdy, Herbert, Kyler, maybe Mayfield, Goff. And I know that seems crazy. Is he a rebuild buy or is he contending? I feel like you're going out and buying.
I think he's a rebuild buy, but I think you're going to get some spike weeks coming up, like when they play Miami, maybe when they play Baltimore, when they play some of these games that could be potential big shootouts. He has the Jags left, the Titans twice left. He's going to have some big games coming up with a fully healthy roster. Nico was on a very limited snap count. If you just look and watch the game, Stroud had 80 yards and a touchdown removed from him on the first play of the game. With that touchdown of Nico Collins, he was above the 340-yard mark and had a touchdown, had about 30-something rushing yards. He would have had a probably 25-point game and 6-point passing. Would have been a good game. Not the best of all time, but it would have been a very good game. When you play a team with a defense that has let up 1,000 rushing yards already this season, it's kind of hard to not rely on Joe Mixon, let Nico Collins get healthy, especially when you're in a positive game script almost the whole time. At half, it was 17-10. It got a little shaky, but they got up, they scored 24-10, okay, and then they got another touchdown, and then it was just over at the beginning of that fourth quarter. But I think with Mechie kind of emerging a little bit, You got Joe Mixon healthy again, Nico Collins healthy again, Tank Dell getting more towards being healthy again. The O-line the past 2 weeks has looked better than it ever has this year. I mean, they held up pretty good against a good Cowboys pass rush last night. Stroud was sacked once. Compared to what it was without Nico. Now that Nico's on the field, you can't just blitz the shit out of the Texans. And they were elite against, like, Stroud was elite against the blitz all year. But when Nico got hurt, it was just like ridiculous amount of pressure because you don't have to really worry about a big playmaker anymore. Like Tank Dell is not the same Tank Dell. And I wanted to put him on my buys list, but I'm like, this dude is literally looking like Tony Pollard did last year after that leg injury.
But
like
Pollard
he looked so bad.
This year's look good, and I think next year you're buying ahead. You're not doing it now. Like same thing with Super Hot just dropped in here. Dak is a prime quarterback to get for a rebuilder. This is that kind of thing where I think Tank Dell, we've seen it. He's a shell of what he was last year, but I think he's back next year. He says Dak Prescott's a prime buy. I agree, and because what you're able to get, like Dak Prescott for, I mean, I've been on the opposite side of it where I got Mooney and Cousins for him, and it feels dirty, right? But that guy, he's a rebuilder. Dak Prescott's going to be instantly. Right now, I've moved him all the way down to QB 17.
Let's have a conversation about Dak, though.
He'll be back.
Does he worry you a little bit that I have him on my Dynasty buy list, but I kept this into consideration. He tore his hamstring off the bone. He already went from being a mobile quarterback to being a statue quarterback with very little mobility. And now he tears his hamstring off the bone.
Yeah.
He's worrying me a little bit. Like, I don't know if he's going to be a Kirk Cousins for as long as Kirk Cousins was, 36, 37, because of the injuries that he's had.
I have him in the same tier right now as Tua, Trevor, Baker in that area. I think it's slightly still above still above JJ McCarthy and Cousins. But I think you have to at least make some opportunity. If you are a contender, you got to move him off. And it doesn't matter. I would do Goff. I would add a second to get to Goff. I would add a third to get to Baker. I would take Tua even up, even though you have that risk going forward. I would add something worth a second from Cousins. I would definitely do the same kind of thing. I would get Stafford in a second.
Would you add a first to get? Would you add a first to get like a Love Purdy?
Purdy, yeah, I would. I think Purdy,
not Love.
Oh, Love for sure, but I think Purdy is like, if I'm contending, I think Purdy's top 5 to 6 rest of the season. He has just looked with the emergence of Jawan Jennings, who's another screaming buy low in
CMC
Dynasty.
Back once they're all healthy. Kittle, Jawan Jennings, Debo, CMC. He's going to be a stat machine.
And I mean, a lot of people have Brandon Ayuk on their buy list, but I'm like,
he's on mine.
Jawan Jennings is doing what Brandon Ayuk only wishes he could do this year. Like Jawan Jennings is putting up 14.2 fantasy points per game and has looked fantastic. Now Ayuk is cheap. Godwin is cheap. Those are those guys where it's like many guys message me and they're like, Dad, I am second in fantasy points right now from the max points for to get the 101. But I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, trade Terry McLaurin for Chris Godwin. Like, get Terry McLaurin off your damn team and just go get Chris Godwin, who is going to be fine. Or even
Rashee or Brandon Ayuk.
Sell at a discount. Like, I've paired up the other day in one of my leagues. I traded, and it's just ugly. I don't want them on my team, but I got them free in trades. I traded Cam Akers, Tyler Boyd, and Chigakonkwo for a third. I mean, they're probably all worth thirds, but eliminating all of them off my team, damn. Now I'm locking up that 101, and we say the 101 versus 102 is usually 30 to 50%. People are going to be, man, I almost said blowing their load, dumping all of their cash flow, dumping everything they have for Ashton Junty, because that's just, he's going to be everyone's new Bijan. And when Bijan came in, people freaked out. They've overpaid like crazy. I mean, people were straight up paying Christian McCaffrey and 2 firsts to try to get up to Bijan Robinson. Like, people were just going ballistic. So I feel like you have to go into that range. A quarterback that I was buying the whole process, but a little bit shaky back and forth, Anthony Richardson came back. And you and I said it on the live stream. We said it last week. And I put him in my waiver wire both week 9 and 10, and people were laughing at me. They were like, this is just stupid. Anthony Richardson comes back with a vengeance, man. He looked dominant. Now you look at what he's done now. He's had 8 starts, Snoog, where he's finished the game. 4 of them in points per carry, he's been over 30 points. All 4 of them, he's been, or 4 out of the 8, he has been top 5. And then, the other ones are disgusting. But week 11, 304 total yards, 3 total touchdowns, 28 fantasy points. Snoog, 67% completion rate. I know the Jets were not going to tackle. They can't tackle anybody for some reason. But this is your ultimate boom bust quarterback that if you have him as your QB2, you are going to be in an area where he's going to, some of these games down the stretch, he's going to put up 30 points. He's going to win you weeks. He's going to lose you weeks too. So it's like only on the sexiest of rosters. But I think Anthony Richardson, I bought him the other day for a 26 first, which is mine, and it's late. I'm fine with that because it's like, what are you going to get? What are you going to pick up? Next year's class doesn't have a ton of quarterbacks. Some people are going to just take this opportunity and say, you know what? I got to get out from Anthony Richardson. And other people are going to cash in and just say, dude, we saw it again, right? So where are you at on this? Did you see what we saw last year in week 1 where he's just a man, possessed playing? He ran the ball well. He threw the ball well. He didn't play scared. Week 2 through 8, he was playing as if he was going to lose his job or he wanted to become a pocket passer. This week, he looked like last year.
Yeah, he made my Dynasty Risers thread from yesterday. Anthony Richardson is playing like Anthony Richardson. He's not playing like someone that wants to be a pocket passer. Mm-hmm. You're not a pocket passer. You maybe eventually later down the road, maybe when you're in your mid-20s, can get somewhat to be. You need to play like Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields. That's your game. Play your game. He reminds me
a lot more of Cam Newton. Just roll with that. You know what I mean?
He needs to touch up. I think going into next year with that deep ball, I think he'll get back to that deep ball consistently. I think the shoulder injury affected his accuracy this year, but I think in missing a ton of time, I think that with Shane Steichen, I just think the offense is very good and simple for him with Downs, Adonai Mitchell. Hopefully Pittman can get his head out of his butt. They need to bring in some type of Dallas Goedert, some type of tight end yak guy like that under a Noah Fant, someone an easy target, a good running back, check down receiver. If they brought in a guy like an Austin Eckler type of player, an elite receiving back that can take a lot of stress off the quarterback, would have been a great pick for them. But I think AR is going to be a good boom bust player, definitely a riser, definitely a buy. He was a buy before. I got him for 2 seconds in the league. Yeah. I was like, I'll pay it. Why not? Yeah. If he hits, I 10x my value. If he doesn't hit, I lose 2 seconds.
People have gone so far. What ends up happening in the fantasy community, not in the Discord, which we have it up there again, Smash Accept Fantasy. Go in there, patreon.com/Smash Accept, so you guys can join the Discord. Snoog, we're down to 3 weeks for the playoffs. You pay for 4 weeks. We get you into the playoffs. $5. It's $1.25 a week, guys. And we're giving you fantasy advice. We're telling you to start Josh Downs because Anthony Richardson isn't going to bring him down. We're telling you to pick up Taysom Hill, who was on our waiver list, and a guy that I said to start pretty much almost every tight end aside from Tucker Kraft, where we missed on that one. But, him, Jonnu Smith, all these guys that we were bringing you the last couple of weeks just saying to buy. I think you get this post-hype thing, right, where everybody wanted Anthony Richardson now, but nobody wants to touch him. We were talking about Josh Downs was a huge buy for Flacco. I was still buying. I bought him last week in multiple leagues for late seconds because he was going for an early second with Flacco, and then people are like, man, Richardson's back. Let's just dump him. He goes out. He puts up another 18 points. People don't want to correct themselves, and the ultimate guy that people don't want to correct themselves on is Quentin freaking Johnston, all right? I have been buying him in every single league. Guys in the Discord were kind of even mocking me. I've been buying him for late seconds every single league I'm in. He's played in 8 games, and he's played in 9 games, and he now has 7 touchdowns. He is an absolute beast. With Justin Herbert throwing a really nice deep ball again, he looks fantastic. Why not? He's been out there every single week. He's been putting up points. When you put him in your lineup, it's not as boom bust as people think, Snoog. Everyone's like, oh, well, if you don't get a touchdown, you're getting nothing from Quentin Johnston. And since Herbert struggled in the beginning a little bit, but you have Carolina, 65 or 51 yards, 2 touchdowns. Pittsburgh, 44 yards and a touchdown. Now you look at there was a rough stretch in there where he got hurt. He got injured in week 4, bye in week 5. He was hobbled in week 6, 7 and 8 he sat out. But since then, 22, 10.4, 12.8 touchdowns in 3 straight weeks. I just think Quentin Johnston is the ultimate guy where you are doing an insulated trade for him. Yep. I got a mid-25 first in Quentin Johnston for Devonta Smith the other day. I know it's a rebuilder, but it's like that's how you win trades is if he continues to be a guy that we knew was going to take time. He's playing really well. Ladd McConkey's playing really well. There was a time where Snook a month ago, I was depressed on my Ladd McConkey shares, and people were like wanting a mid-first on top of Ladd for Brian Thomas Jr. Right now, the way Brian Thomas Jr. has played with Mac Jones, Ladd McConkey's really close there. You know what I mean? So This team is ascending. I'm buying everything I can in that Chargers offense. I'm buying Dobbins cheap. I'm buying Herbert again. Like, I'm excited.
Yep, I agree. I think Quentin Johnston's a guy that when I comped him to Christian Watson, I feel very good about that comp, like rookie Christian Watson. He's going to be a touchdown scoring machine, not a lot of volume, and he's going to rely on big plays, which is fine because we are getting him for thirds after a terrible rookie year. And now you got a guy that you can rely. It's not all about the home run hits, right? Like if you can just turn thirds and fourths and like late seconds into startable players that'll help you win weeks when you have an injury, when you have a bye week, that's what really helps. Because
absolutely,
I can't even count how many teams I have James Conner, Aaron Jones, and Austin Eckler sitting on my bench that don't even touch my lineup. And then I have a couple injuries or a couple bye weeks, and I'm plugging in RBs that are putting up 15 to 20 points a game when you need them to. Like they have that upside too. Aaron Jones is another one. And it's just like Jordan Mason dad. Like we got him off the waivers and he turned into an RB1 for the meantime. I didn't even sell him anywhere. I didn't care to.
Sometimes I just wrote it. It's always process over results. I mean, for me, the biggest thing was back in the day, I was in 10 leagues and I picked up Darren Waller off of free agency in 9 of them. Because it was like he was nobody, right? And then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, this is really starting to pick up. And Mason's one of those guys, when you have it with a running back, it's like you want to move him at the right time. But Quentin Johnston's been one of those guys. Cedric Tillman has been one of those guys. Even Jerry Jeudy with Jameis Winston at quarterback over the last month. I'm not sure if you saw this stat. I put it out there today. Cedric Tillman's the wide receiver 8. Jerry Jeudy's the wide receiver 14. And Elijah Moore's the wide receiver 15. It's like, say what you want, but Jameis freaking Winston is just fun for fantasy. It's going to be wild. It's not going to be something you can predict. 11 targets for 6 receptions for Jeudy. I mean, that's the type of games we're seeing, right? But beastly, 142 yards. And he went out there and scored that deep touchdown. And then Tillman was putting up those big games. The target volume for all of them is so high because this offense, honestly, is just they're going to be a lot of wildly inaccurate throws, but you're going to get some real hero type plays. I mean, everyone's saying, well, Dad, what about Tillman? He didn't show up this week. He still had 8 targets. He's had 40 targets in 4 games. He's still, he's a buy now. You know what I mean? Like this is that area. If you get Jameis Winston down the stretch for the playoffs, and it sucks he plays the Ravens week 18, not week 17. But I think if you can get Winston for a pair of thirds, or a 27-second, or you can get any of these wide receivers as a depth move. If you're going into what you were talking about it last week. If you have a deadline, throw a third out for Elijah Moore, throw a late second out for Tillman or Jeudy, and I think you're going to get yourself a guy that's going to be able to put it out there.
That or go get Sutton, go get Hopkins, go get Ridley, go get those guys because those guys are going to give you some good weeks. Amari Cooper's a good one. That's a really buy low. I could see him just blowing up in the fantasy playoffs.
I'm 5th on the team in targets this past week. I've told you for a while I'm out on Amari Cooper. If I can get any second, I'm taking it. And we don't have to agree on everything. You know what I mean? Like that's what's awesome. You nailed it with Sutton though, brother. You're talking about since the week 7 where he sat out, where he had 0 he didn't sit out. He had 0 catches. He has gone up and he's gone at 16, 25, 19, 14, 11. Those were his fantasy points. 11 targets, 10 targets, 9 targets, 8 targets. And Nix has just figured it out. He's like, Sutton's the guy. Just throw it up his way. And, I don't think you have to pay a second for him. I think you just go out there and you throw a pair of thirds, or I would take Sutton over Amari Cooper rest of the season just because Khalil Shakir is the guy in that offense right now. You know what I mean? I think Keon Coleman comes back. Even Curtis Samuel got involved. So I love the talent of Amari Cooper. I just don't think he's right in the system yet, and he's not right with his wrist. But he's if you're a contender and you don't need him, you go buy him now because he's going to be a guy that you could have down the stretch, but you're also going to get next year. Yeah, Fantasy Condo says, and this is Purdy's one of my biggest buys, but he said he bought Purdy in a second, 26 second and 27 second, gave Darnold and an early 25 first. Snoog, I have a lot of guys talking to me about, the early part of that draft is going to be really sexy. I think there's about 4 guys right now that I'm really invested in that I think are going to be top 3 startup picks. So is this a type of move that you make going all in? You get the 26. I'm assuming they're late 26 and 27 seconds, which you can do something with. You get off Darnold, but you give that early first. How do you feel about those in 6-point passing on a contender? Because if you win it, it's sexy, right? Purdy, I think, is top 5 to 6 rest of the season. How do you go about advising people with that? Because I always say try to do it another way, but let's be honest. If that's the only thing that you have that's rebuilding, they're going to want that first.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think I agree with what you're saying there. Like a guy like Purdy, big game down the stretch, fully healthy offense, just go into those type of guys is the way to do it. And I want to actually tie this into what you think with, I've been getting a million questions in the Discord itself. I have people that have been holding their first and listening to us all year because we always say don't sell them early. Wait until mid to late season when it's rebuilders just want to get trash off their team. And by trash, I mean people that are scoring points. And now it's time to sell your first. I think right now is a great time. And I want to see if you think you're going to go after a guy where it's kind of like I don't like doing something like this where it's like you're giving up Sam Darnold in an early first.
Yeah.
And you're getting Purdy and something I don't like giving up early firsts just because they're going to gain a ton of value when rookie draft comes.
See,
but are you ready to ship off a first for Joe Mixon? Are you ready to ship off a first for Cooper Kupp? Are you doing stuff like that?
Here's what I'm doing right now. And I was reading you were going through the question, and we've been doing this so long, I knew what you were even thinking towards. But the other day, someone is rebuilding and they offer me Kirk Cousins for a 25 first. And I was like, no, I'm going to hold on to that. I'll do my 26 sold. I think that's the play to start the thing out, right? Because if they have Joe Mixon, they've been holding him. They're tired of him adding points to them. So they want your 25 first. And if it's 10 to 12, do it. I'm done. Just absolutely do it. Hey, a lot of you guys are putting in here right now, off of YouTube, off of Twitter, hey, make sure you answer my question. We're going to have super chats on tonight. We do our best to answer them, but we're still just doing the best to try to make sure we're bringing you a quality show as well for the listeners. What we're trying to do is we're trying to buy Joe Mixon for that 10 to 12. I'll buy Derrick Henry for that 10 to 12. I'm doing all those areas where I'm willing to go out there and buy Cousins for 26 first. Give me Stafford for a pair of 26 seconds. I don't want to go up and invest with an early to mid 25 first unless I'm getting something that is truly going to be a difference maker. I'm holding it longer than I'm holding anything 8 to 12. I'm willing to move. Top 5.
Yeah.
I got it. I got to get somewhere in that trade. I got to be tearing up to a Jefferson. I got to be tearing up to a elite quarterback like Jalen Hurts. That's the only way I can do it, and I always suggest to people, go a little bit cheaper, see what you can get, a question here from Quentin A. He said, are you paying a second or what are you paying for Tyrone Tracy? I think you get Tyrone Tracy for a late second, and he's shown a ton of upside. I think, we got the, what do they call him? Tommy Cutlet. We got a little DeVito time. Hey, I think it's going to be a little bit fun for the offense because we saw what Slayton did with him. So, for me, it's I'm going out there and I'm just saying, you know what? Give me the guys that are a second. But if I'm pushing all in, I really don't want to move those mid to early first unless it's truly elite. because some guys have asked me, Snoop, they're like, hey, I have like what's looking like the 103 for Joe Mixon in a 25-second. No. That is not the way. They're like, but Dad, it's going to win me a title. If it doesn't, you're going to kick yourself in the ass. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are not going to like that trade. Now, if you make that trade and it has to do with Bijan, A-Chain, you know, like one of those kind of guys, it doesn't sting as bad because you get them for a long time. But early on in my dynasty career, I was trading mid-first for Adrian Peterson in a second. And then all of a sudden, you have that sharp decline, or they change teams, or they're, you know, only last a year or two. So that gets tough.
Absolutely agree.
Let's pull up some of the other ones here. We're getting a little bit close on time. We already talked about the rebuilding guys that were buying off of injury. Ayuk, Godwin, Rice, still a buy. Rice is continuing to drop. There's a couple guys that we really want.
I have one. Trevor Lawrence, let's talk.
Oh, Trevor Lawrence. Okay. All right. Trevor Lawrence is a good one because people in the Discord are getting him for 26 first now. Just a random 26 first. And I think we're going to get a real coach. He already has some weapons there. I think they add more weapons. And I think Trevor Lawrence low-key has his best season next year.
He's a good football player.
Correct.
He's just missing
horrible coaching.
He's missing structure, a scheme, and I just don't think a coach has ever been able to unlock him. But like imagine he got a Sean Payton, or he got like one of these Shanahan style quarterbacks. Like he's a good player. He's a good player when it matters. Like he's a good winner. He's just a good football player, and he's got arm talent. Him and BTJ with that, even Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, all these weapons. I think they get the right coach and the right offensive coordinator, and I think things are going to happen that are very good for that Jaguars team. I just don't know when it's going to happen.
Rebuilding teams, I don't often say add picks that you have for the future, but I have been telling people Cousins, Stafford, Darnold, Rodgers, Carr, Geno, Russ, even Bryce Young. If you have those guys, add a second and get Trevor Lawrence. Those guys are going to want points on their roster. You know, flip him straight up for Tua Tagovailoa. Flip him straight up for Baker Mayfield. You know, like these are kind of the opportunities that you're going to get where you're going to be able to get a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Doesn't come along cheap very often. One other guy that you have on that list is the cheapest version of Joe Mixon you can get is Chuba Hubbard. Chuba Hubbard just keeps going. Now, I understand Jonathan Brooks is back this week. And with that news, you're going to be able to buy Chuba for a pair of thirds and just do it. Like he has been over the last couple of weeks since we have Brooks coming off of IR, you know, and since he started practicing, that even lit a fire under him even more. I mean, he has put up crazy points. What are you willing to pay for Chuba Hubbard right now? I'm getting him thrown in on contenders. Like I showed you that one deal where I dealt Stroud, Addison, a couple other guys, you know, and some picks for Josh Allen. I was like, hey, throw in Chuba Hubbard. He's RB12 on the season, but since they've had Jonathan Brooks come off IR, he's been RB2 and RB10. Like he's possessed.
And the team sucks. So picture if they actually get their heads out of their butts and start to put things together, and Bryce Young ends up getting a little bit better.
Did you see his playoff schedule?
Dallas,
Arizona, and Tampa Bay.
I was going to say Kamara has a wicked easy schedule in the playoffs too. It's like always that division, like the Falcons, Saints, and
they can't
Panthers and Bucks. They always have like the easiest schedule. So it's because they play each other twice a year. So that's 6 easy games a year for any of those teams.
He gets the Bucks twice over that time. Now on the flip side of that means the Bucks get the Panthers twice over there. So I mean, you know, you're buying on Bucky, you're buying on White, you're buying on Evans, you're buying on Baker. You're 100%. If you're doing redraft, you have to. And this was on my waiver wire list this week, but you have to buy the Bucks defense. Snoog and I don't talk defense a lot, but dude, the Bucks rest of the way, their defense is going to play the following quarterbacks: DeVito, then they play Herbert once, Bryce Young twice, Cooper Rush, and Gardner Minshew. This turnover machines, guys on the Bucks. That's why, for me, Mike Evans is a crazy buy. If you believe in Bucky or White, you go after one of them. Baker's going to win you leagues down the stretch because those Carolina matchups, Las Vegas, the Cowboys, aside from the Chargers, they have a really juicy schedule. So, guys, we're going to be back on tonight. We're going to have things set up for super chats again. We're going to have things set up, links to get into the Patreon. Snoog and I play each other in week 13 of Smash 9. We're the 1 and 2 seed. We're trying to come up with a contest. So if you guys can DM us, we want to give something away to you guys. So we're going to say like, hey, the win, try to help us come up with a contest for that. We're trying to give away some Patreons, maybe some jerseys, some things like that, where if you pick the winner versus Snoog and I, whoever it is, we'll take good care of you. So
yeah, we'll do a raffle.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and enjoy the process.